Legends, welcome back. Yesterday in episode 3, I talked about the negative labels that others push on us and how damaging that could be. With the worst one of all being labeled as nothing. That your life is so pointless, you're not even recognized as a person. I hope none of you have ever had to experience that label. Can you imagine what that's like? I started making significant changes to my life after that realization that I had after having that conversation with that old English teacher that I mentioned yesterday. I started taking better care of myself. I stopped hanging out with people that were destroying me. There's a great book out there called Give and Take by an author named Adam Grant. He talks about two types of people, givers and takers. Givers are like the sun. They're always doing something good. They're giving light, warmth, they're teaching, they're inspiring. Takers, on the other hand, are like black holes. They do nothing but take and destroy. They're draining to be around because all they do is suck the life and the goodness out of you. I avoid black holes with like the plague. And back then, there was a lot of them. And I started staying away from them. And I wanted to hang around givers. As I continually tried to improve myself, I started serving other people. And that felt good. Putting myself out there and just doing something for someone else. And then a mentor challenged me to go to college. And if any of you watched yesterday's episode, you understand how difficult school was for me. But as I started watching all these successful people, I realized that if I wanted to be like them, if I wanted to escape from the darkness I was always surrounded with, I should probably just take their advice. So that's what I did. I moved away from Las Vegas and I went to school in Utah. It was crazy. All I had with me was a backpack and a guitar. And I hit the road. That's all I left with. I ended up staying with a guy who was absolutely wonderful and still a dear friend today. And he was out of town on vacation, and so he just let me stay in his house. I ended up giving my guitar to his grandkids for letting me stay there. That's all I could give because that's all I really had. I don't even remember what was in my backpack. Probably a few change of clothes, but that was it. And once I got settled, I found a couple of part-time jobs. I started going to school and I started studying business. And in my business class, I met this young lady. Actually, it was a personal finance class, and we seemed to have a lot in common. We started dating, and a few months later, we were married. Like, it happened super fast. Boom, met you, started dating you, then we got married. And from day one, it was a complete and utter disaster. And she endured my shenanigans for a couple of years. And then I woke up one day and she was gone. She totally just divorced me. It was surprisingly simple and easy. I'll tell you more about that at some other time, I guess. But when she left, I decided that I wanted to devote all of my time and efforts into studying relationships. I wanted to know what I did wrong and why I was so completely unlovable. I mean, what did I do? What was I doing that would drive somebody away like that they would just up and leave and divorce you and not ever talk to you again? All I wanted was to love somebody and to be loved. And I read dozens of relationship books. I took courses at the university. I did everything I could to try and make myself lovable. After reading a couple of business articles talking about military veterans in business, I decided that I should look into the military. I figured that the discipline I would learn would not only help me in my relationships, but also in business. So I walked into a recruiting office for the Marines. I was like, hey, I want to be one of the few and the proud. I want to be a Marine. And they were like, no. And I was like, why not? And they're like, because you have a tattoo on your forearm. And I was shocked. I thought that that's what Marines did, got tattoos and went and shot bad people. I guess I was totally wrong. So I walked next door to the Army recruiter and I was like, hey, I want to be a soldier. And they threw some papers in front of my face, and the next thing I know, I have a shaved head and I'm doing push-ups shouting, Drill Sergeant Law is not a ma'am. Drill Sergeant Law is not a ma'am. Apparently you're not supposed to call female drill sergeants ma'am. Just before I left on that adventure, though, I met a beautiful, talented, smart, lovely, amazing woman named Camille. I remember the first time I saw her, she was performing her violin. She had this flowing, long, red hair, just stunning, beautiful, fair skin, and this green, fancy dress thing on, and she was like an angel. And we had been on a couple of dates already before I left, and I just like hoped and prayed that she would still be interested when I got home. And when she was, and we continued dating, we eventually got married, and it was awesome. And we've been married for over 10 years now, and it's been the complete opposite of the first marriage that I had that lasted for a couple years. And looking back, I was just so excited for a second chance that she'd be willing to take a chance on me. She came from a completely opposite background as I did. Her parents were super well off. Her dad was successful in business, and I seriously brought like nothing to the table. I'm surprised they even gave me permission to marry their daughter. A few years into our marriage, after I graduated with a master's degree, I had such a raging passion to get into business. And so I leaped into one of my dreams that I've always wanted to do. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur and to own my own business. I just dreamed of having that success and just doing it and being able to work from home and spend time with my family and experience the world on my own terms, make my own schedule. And I even wrote this check to myself. Let's see if I could find it here for you real quick. What do I do with it? It's here in this room somewhere. Here it is. Check this out. Let me cover up the bank account number because it's probably still the same. I don't know if that matters, but boom, right here. Dustin Wiggins, January 13, 2009 is when I wrote this check. 10 years ago this month. I wrote it for $25 million. A little excessive, right? But hey, I was ambitious. And obviously the check is still here, so I'm still waiting to cash it for myself. I don't have $25 million. I got a couple $1,000. Anyway, so we went all in on a business. I started a publishing company from scratch. And this, to use another Vegas analogy or Vegas term, we were all in. I threw it all on black. I had a small savings, a little retirement account that I had been growing from the last several years of working, and I just put it all in there. I was ready. And I built these language flashcards right here, called them the basics. It's Spanish, German, French, English even, German. And I also had audio files associated with them. And I thought that I was going to make it big time with my language products. So I stuffed them in my backpack and I loaded my 2-year-old son into a wagon and we hit the streets. We went door to door trying to sell these language flashcards. And honestly, it was fun. I had a lot of fun. And all the time I was trying to sell them, we sold like 4 of them. But in addition, I had some other things going on too. Like there's a website that's not around anymore, or maybe they changed their name. It was called FamilyShare.com. And they paid me to write articles on relationships. And I got into this just because I tried a random experiment one day and I wrote an article, like some time management or something article for the local news just to see if they would publish it. And they did. And so I wrote another one and they published that one and they started publishing my stuff. And that's how I got introduced to this Family Share group. And I started to see a little bit of success too. I had over 1.5 million views on my articles. Like that was That was big time for me. And they're paying me a little bit for it too, which is cool. And I was having fun. All I ever wanted to do was prove to everyone who put those labels on me that I talked about yesterday, that I wasn't nothing, that I could be someone, that I could add value. I wanted to support my wife and son with an income from a business that I made and products that I built. But really, most of all, I wanted to be a husband that my wife could be proud of. Unfortunately, though, I wasn't really selling a lot of flashcard sets. I was making like $20 with every sale, and I would need to sell hundreds to support my family. I couldn't knock on enough doors fast enough. And each article that I sold to Family Share wasn't pulling in much more than the flashcards. And so I started draining my retirement account. I remember walking into the financial institution that had it, and they were trying hard to convince me to not take it out. They're like, don't do it. Don't take this out. There's so many financial penalties that you're going to go through. And I mean, it's not worth it. Save it. But I didn't have a choice. I started driving my family into excessive amounts of debt. And I started to remember the feelings that I had growing up. Like, I felt like I wasn't worthy of success. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't good enough. I didn't come from the right neighborhood. I wasn't capable. I was just broken. I was nothing, right? All those labels were right. But honestly, most of all, I didn't want to end up back in a trailer park. I didn't want my wife and my kids to have to go through some of the same things that I went through. And something had to change. I couldn't continue doing what I was doing. I couldn't support my family this way. I just wasn't making enough money. I wasn't making any money. And so I called my wife and my son together for a little family council meeting. And I sat them down. I sat there broken. I told my wife that I'd failed and I had no idea what I was going to do next. Then, like in the midst of that conversation, my phone rings. And it was an old friend of mine named Chuck. And normally I would never answer the phone during one of our family meetings. But I felt like I should answer the call. So I took it. And I was like, hey, Chuck, how's it going, bro? And he was like, hey, Dustin, my unit's deploying to Afghanistan and we need someone to come along with us. Do you want to come? And I was like, hold on a second. I started thinking, this is pretty good money. Like this will get us out of this mess. And so I was like, let me ask my wife. And I was like, hey, Camille, Chuck's on the phone. He's going to Afghanistan with his unit. And he asked if I can come along with them. This would be a really great opportunity for us to get out of debt. And, you know, I could support you guys if we do this. And she's just always been so supportive of whatever and willing to go through whatever pain and struggles. And I just can't thank her enough for all that she does. Anyway, so she was like, yeah, you can go. Go ahead. I support you. And so I was like, hey, Chuck, sign me up. Let's go. And the next thing you know, I'm in Kabul, Afghanistan with a light infantry battalion. And it was hard to be away from my family, my wife and my son. And we were even trying to have another child actually before I left. And we just didn't know if it was going to happen. And so on the way out, like the way out the door, we tried one more time. And while I was in Afghanistan, my wife told me that she was pregnant. And so I left my wife pregnant too. And anyway, so it was insane. And in an effort while I was away to stay close to my wife, I remember most days I would write down things that I wanted to do with her, like dates I wanted to take her on, experiences that I wanted to have with her that we could do when I got home or whenever. And I was really excited to make up for all the lost time. I'd miss Thanksgiving, I miss Christmas, I miss our anniversary, I miss my son's birthday. And finally, after 9 months, days before my son was born, I returned home. And it was just so amazing to be with my family again. But honestly, that bliss faded pretty quick. Reality sunk in. I didn't have a job to go home to. There was no more income coming in from the military. I was in the same exact situation I was in before I left for Afghanistan. So I hit the streets, desperately trying to find work. And I got rejection after rejection after rejection. And then one day, I overheard a lady talking on her cell phone. We were at a newborn checkup for my son who had just been born. And she was talking on her phone and she was complaining about an employee who was always letting her down, always calling off work. And so when she hung up, I introduced myself. I was like, hey, I just got home from Afghanistan. I'm looking for a job and I would be happy to help you. And she hired me right there. And I showed up to work at her restaurant that her father and her owned. And I was thankful to have a job. I was a little bit surprised, however, to learn that in Utah, servers only get paid like $2.10 an hour. Like coming from Vegas, that is insane. You get minimum wage plus your tips. And so I was a little disappointed with that. And they justified, I guess, saying that, you'll make tips and it will raise you up to whatever hourly wage, but honestly, I never really made, even as I was working it for the customers, I never made more than $7-8 an hour. And so with that, I kept looking for a second job because I needed more work. And I kept getting rejection after rejection after rejection. And then finally, I got a call from the city with an offer to work as a 911 dispatcher. And I was like, yep, sign me up. But it only paid like $8 an hour or something like that. So I had a $2 an hour job and an $8 an hour job and a house payment and a newborn and a family and student loans. And I was now starting to rack up some more credit card debt again. And even though I had 2 jobs and I was bringing in income, I started to have the same feelings that I had before I left for Afghanistan. I wasn't worthy enough. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't smart enough to have a decent paying job. I wasn't capable enough. And I was still completely broken. I had no idea what to do. And I wasn't sure what was going to happen next. And then I had an idea. I was still very passionate about business. And so I took the 180 experiences that I wrote down while I was in Afghanistan, and I resurrected my failed, because I hadn't done anything with it since the language products. It was a failed publishing company, and I published those experiences as a book, 180 Experiences That Will Strengthen Your Marriage. I'm looking around to see if I have a copy right here that I could show you. I do. Here it is right here. Boom. Let me show you this. Boom. 180 experiences that will strengthen your marriage. Straight up out of Afghanistan, son and daughter. Anyway, so it's just a few cool, I guess you can see the flipping. Few little fun experiences there. And, I was like, yeah, I got a book. So I sent it to Costco and a bunch of other bookstores. And I'm thinking, yeah, this is it. My wife's going to be so proud. I'm going to be a best-selling author. And then, I started getting letters in the mail. And it was like, rejection, rejection, rejection. And no one wanted to sell my book. Nobody. Everybody rejected me. And so I set it aside. I was like, all right, this is a failure as well, so many failures. And so I didn't do anything with it. And with great determination, I squared up my shoulders and I ended up finding a business that I purchased. It was a small dry cleaning business. So I quit my 2 crappy paying jobs and I bought this small dry cleaning business thinking this is it. I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to grow this small business. I'm going to make it better, and I'm going to freaking crush it. And for a year, I worked until my hands bled. My hands were bleeding. I was working so much. No holidays, no sick days, no vacations. I could barely eat food and go to the bathroom. I was working like 18 hour days. And the only day off I had was Sunday, so I could go to church and recharge my batteries and then get back after it. But after a year of not paying myself, because anybody who has ever run a small business knows that a lot of the money goes back into fixing broken crap, paying employees, and there just wasn't much there. I mean, the revenue was going up, which was good, and I had enough money to pay employees, so over time I started not having to work so much, and I could focus on growing the business. But I was not breaking myself, I was breaking myself. I was not paying myself to break myself. So I should have checked myself before I wrecked myself, I guess. Anyway, so I started racking up credit card debt again. Then, like manna from heaven, I got another call from another military person with a job offer to teach. And I was like, okay, that would be awesome. And it was a 3-year gig. And I was ridiculously relieved. And we talked about it. I took the offer, and we ended up selling the business and the house that we had. Very, very nice house that was on a street called Vegas, actually, on the corner of a street called Vegas, which I thought was kind of cool. And because it was in such a wonderful neighborhood, we made enough money to pay off all of our debt. We paid off my student loans, my wife's student loans. We paid off tens of thousands of dollars of credit card debt, and we were totally free. We had nothing, but we also didn't owe anything, which was kind of like a win. And it felt liberating to start over. And the lessons that I learned during all of this have been absolutely priceless. My dear wife was and always is so ridiculously supportive. I haven't even mentioned all of the failures in here. Those are all stories for another time. And she's just been along for the roller coaster ride. And I just can't imagine what it would be like to not have her in my life. She's amazing. She's one of those people that are like the sun, always giving and blessing and healing and helping. And I'll be forever thankful for her. Even when things are hard, she's been so optimistic and encouraging. Oh, it's been really nice. I was just thinking of a time where somebody was criticizing me and my wife, and they referred to her as like Helen Keller or something like that. And I just thought that was funny. Anyway, but she's amazing. She's that amazing. Now, as we continue this journey, I still can't cash my check. But I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to help strengthen the relationships of thousands of couples. I'm really looking for couples who are like us, that have struggled and that have failed and that have been separated and that have been lost and that have no idea where their next paycheck is going to come from, but that love each other and they want to help each other and they want to be there for each other no matter what. Those are the couples that I'm looking for. And you know what? Because you're here, as you stay tuned, you're going to be the first to see how I'm going to help these couples. How I'm going to take what my wife and I have and give it away to other people and share it with anybody who's willing to listen. And I suck at recording videos. I'm not good at a lot of things. I've failed a lot. But one thing that I am is freaking determined. I have gotten up every single time I fail, and I'm going to keep going until I succeed or die. And so that's my commitment to you. I'm going to help anybody who will listen, or I'm going to die. I don't care about the criticism. I don't care about the negative labels that people are going to put on me. I don't care about my past mistakes that I've made, which are a lot. And I know there's a lot of people that will be happy to bring them up and criticize me and try to destroy me. But you know what? I don't care, because I'm going to move forward and I'm going to do everything I can to help people, because that's what I want to do. And that's what has brought me the greatest amount of joy in my life, is helping others. Have a good night, legends. I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.